Welcome to number 16, which I've called, What About the Truth? Some people ask where the stress on truth is, in the Analects or in the later Confucian tradition. This is a Western kind of question, because the stress in the Analects is on rightness, correctness of behaviour, and as we shall see, the correctness of names. There is an emphasis on getting names right. There is a great amount of discussion of truth in Western thought, and the issue forms a part of every Philosophy 101 curriculum. There is, for example, the correspondence theory of truth, in which truth is thought of as a statement which corresponds to a state of affairs or fact. And then, if this doesn't work, one moves to the coherence theory of truth, which also has difficulties, and so on. But in the West, the word truth has many different meanings, ranging from the Bible to Heidegger. The only thing that everybody agrees on is that truth is important. So the absence of a theory of truth, or even a word for truth in Confucius, seems surprising to some. But of course those who talk about truth the most, let us say Christian writers, do not advance a theory of truth, or let us know where they stand on the correspondence theory or the coherence theory, which I mentioned a moment ago. The truth is simply a claim which is put forward to be believed. The prophet Jeremiah wrote of the truth frequently, and he spoke about his passionate commitment to it. God's word was like a fire burning in his bones, which he could not contain if he did not speak about it. That is also a tradition in the West, burning passion about what is claimed to be the truth. And the figure of the prophet, the denouncer, is familiar in the West. Of course, Jeremiah doesn't give us his theoretical position on the matter. He just claims that the word of God is the truth. So it is a word, truth, but one which does not necessarily carry any serious theoretical position, but usually denotes a command to believe. Truth and obedience are closely linked in the prophet Jeremiah. To what extent is Confucius interested in the matter? He's most interested in the Tao, the way, and how it is correctly understood. But he's very far from making propositional statements about it, as it is hard to sum up, and is sometimes best understood negatively. In the end, this question about truth is a question about the way. But this should not be surprising to a Westerner. After all, Jesus did say, "I am the way," and the truth as well. He added the life, so that we understand that it is about how to live. So nothing really unfamiliar here, except to say that Jesus' claim is a big one and uncompromising. I am the way. Confucius more modestly simply points to it. Confucius does not aspire to be the author of a textbook on truth, but he does aspire to show the Tao, the way, in all its breadth and depth. What a simple, homespun and clear analogy this is. Knowing the way to the next village, or the road to the big city, or the path to the neighbour's house. These are basic necessities of life. But we should not forget that most believe the image in Confucius is about the way of water courses, not pathways on land, the irrigation channels, the way in which water makes its own path, or follows the course that is shaped by its human partners. The Analects is about values, and it is not a study of the problem of truth or of what a fact is. It is not a textbook on the philosophy of science. It is about how to speak and how to act. Let us recall the basic qualities of the virtuous individual, since these constitute the way: deference, tolerance, making good on one's word, diligence, and generosity. These, combined with ritual, proper ritual, make the way, and the ritual is that which binds us together as human beings. There is also in Confucius a concern with naming things correctly, a concept called zhengming, often translated as the rectification of names. This could indeed be said to be a concern with truth, as it involves how names fit realities. There are appropriate names, and they unfailingly designate certain natural states of affairs. It appears to me that the concern with names is actually a concern with nouns, and is not just an issue about titles and functions, but it is an issue about how nouns designate reality. In Analects 13:3, Confucius says, "When names are not used properly, language will not be used effectively. When language is not used effectively, matters will not be taken care of. When matters are not taken care of, the observance of ritual propriety and the playing of music will not flourish. When the observance of ritual propriety and the playing of music do not flourish, the application of laws and punishments will not be on the mark. The people will not know what to do with themselves. There is nothing careless in the attitude of the exemplary person, the yunzi, toward what is said." Thus, Confucius, and remarkably Socrates, said something very similar in Athens. Socrates says, "You may be sure, my dear Cebes, that inaccurate language is not only itself a mistake, it implants evil in men's souls." One can sympathize with the desire for clarity of language, especially in our own age, where obfuscation and spin is the dominant characteristic of public discourse. Avoidance of clarity is often in the interests of the speaker, and there exist many advisers in our society who are expert in shaping the language of explanation. Things, above all, must look positive. Even if your bill is going up, that is good news for you. Somehow or other the sun is shining more brightly because your bill is going up. But it is not just the need to call a spade, which is behind Confucius' call for the rectification of names. He's not just calling for an end to spin. His call for the rightness of names is also a call for social order in terms of the principles I just described. There is an understanding of the right way to carry out a role, the role of being an exemplary person. For example, there is a right way to be a father and the right way to be a son, he says. So it's generally agreed that this call for the rectification of names is also a call for social order in terms of the values of the way, And some people see this as a kind of authoritarianism, which forces people into assigned roles and tells them to know their place. In other words, a kind of medieval feudalism. The rich man in his castle and the poor man at his gate, to quote a Christian hymn. We will look next time at how the rectification of names plays out subsequently to Confucius, but let us note a couple of things here. I strongly suspect that there is a philosophy of the natural origin of names which lies under this call for rectification. That is, that names and nature are connected, and that the name for a thing arises from nature itself. Names somehow are connected with being, and they are not purely conventional or just made up like a new language, such as Esperanto. They are, in some sense, given. This idea of the natural origins of names has a huge history, and we don't know enough about what lies in the background of Confucius thought to know whether there is a belief that names and nature belong together. But one suspects this. People resisted the idea that names were complete fictions. Secondly, it is true that names have their own authority. Names have effects. Names do have an affective connotation, and they can cause emotion. They can bring about associations. They give rise to poetry, or they give rise to fear or respect. They give a flavour to everything that happens. This is why people change their names and hope to change their social realities. There is indeed a magic in names. So Confucius is not simply recalling the nature of things in setting out names and functions correctly. He's also recognizing their authority and understanding the magical web which names can weave. Thank you for joining me on the subject of truth and names, and we will look at the way in which the rectification of names develops into a social instrument following Confucius.